Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:07. Good Friday morning to you. Thanks for joining us here on day 3 of the government shutdown. Riley Gaines, friend of this program, had her baby overnight. Congratulations to Riley Gaines. Try that, Leah Thomas. Try that. Let's see you do that, Leah. Coming up later this program, 6:35, Gary Katz, former candidate for chairman-at-large at Loudoun County Board of Supervisors, will chime in on the lunacy over in that body. 7:05, J. Christian Adams, about how a illegal immigrant from Guyana could register to vote in Maryland. I'm shocked. 7:35, John Lott, on how the FBI still needs to clean up its act with regard to crime statistics. 8:05, Jim Hansen, on that terror attack in England yesterday. And then we'll check in with Congress. Congressman Herodopoulos. Talk about the shutdown. Herodopoulos? All right, let's go with it. I'm Larry O'Connor with Patrice Onwuka. Good morning, Patrice. Oh, Patrice, we are having issues hearing Patrice down the line. We will connect with Patrice in just a second. But yes, it is day 3 with the government shutdown. Another day, another shutdown, and honestly, not much has changed from yesterday to today other than the continued war of words. And who do you believe? Are you going to believe the Democrats, or are you going to believe your lion eyes when you look at the actual proposal that they put forth to refund the government and what they demanded, which included making sure that hospitals were reimbursed fully through Medicaid for treating medical care for illegal immigrants? They continue to claim that that wasn't there, even though we've seen the document that says that that's exactly what is there. Also, don't forget that part of the funding for health care for illegal aliens comes alongside the Biden administration just arbitrarily giving temporary protective status or parole provisions to illegal immigrants on a temporary basis that the Trump administration now has reversed and said, no, you're no longer in protective status. You're no longer applying or eligible for parole so that you can be here, under a legal umbrella. Yes. You are, in fact, an illegal immigrant and therefore not eligible for health care. And Democrats want to reverse that and make all of those people who are illegal immigrants suddenly, with a wave of their hand, have legal status again. And so, yes, a huge amount of what's going on here has to do with funding health care for illegal immigrants. But also, Patrice, and I'm glad you're connected, a part of this has to do with them trying to continue to put that little teeny tiny Band-Aid on the floodgates of increased health care costs in this country and increased insurance premiums that were baked in the cake with the Affordable Care Act. During the pandemic, during COVID-19, under duress, under an emergency protocol because of the health pandemic, they increased huge government subsidies for the insurance companies, rural hospitals, and other healthcare facilities around the country to sort of temporarily fix what was going on during the pandemic because our economy was broken and nothing was functioning. That was 5 years ago. The pandemic is over, but they want to make those temporary emergency fixes permanent now, which means full-on government health care, which nobody voted for, and they want to do it under duress with a gun to the head of the American people during this shutdown. Go ahead.
You know what, Larry? I'm actually writing about this right now. Hopefully I'll have an op-ed out early next week. What they did from the healthcare perspective and the Obamacare subsidies, it used to be that you had to earn up to 400% of the poverty line. That's a lot of money, by the way. The Biden administration expanded it so that people were earning even above that level. You're talking about six-figure households being able to get Obamacare subsidies to pay for their health care. And here's how I'm positioning this shutdown. Democrats want to force pregnant women and babies not to get the food assistance they need, to shut that down so that people earning six figures in this country, high earners, can continue to get cheaper Obamacare subsidies. Tell me how that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Tell me also how it makes
I will tell you how it makes sense real fast, since you asked the rhetorical question. It makes sense if your goal is for the government to control all of healthcare in this country. That's how it makes sense, because all you do
why
is
it only
just
makes sense.
keep creeping that up. That's why Bernie Sanders and AOC are so insistent. That's why they're leading the charge, because this is their way to finally socialize healthcare completely.
Which should make Americans irate. That is not fair, to take food out of the mouths of truly poor people in this country so that you can make sure that the well-heeled continue to get savings on their health care. Tell me how it makes sense that, you're going to shut down the WIC program for babies, take milk out of the mouth of little newborn babies so that illegal immigrants can go to the emergency room when they get a cold and get health care. That is, I think, the way to position this dichotomy. There is no way you can justify that. And our listeners know you're talking to a naturalized U.S. citizen, meaning I am a legal citizen to this country. And I absolutely oppose illegal immigrants getting taxpayer benefits because it's against the law and it is patently unfair. Yeah. It creates a magnet system for people to come here illegally, knowing they can access benefits on the backs of all of us who've done it the right way and regular American natural-born citizens who are paying for it. Well, it's unfair. So, but that's what we have to continue to message this as, because the Democrats want to be slippery and pretend like, oh, this is not happening. Right. Or you have a few like Maxine Waters who will actually, say the quiet part out loud.
Yeah, well, the Democrats will say, oh, no, it's illegal for illegal immigrants to get anything under the Obamacare provisions, which, by the
law,
way...
but we know in effect it's happening.
Yeah, it's also illegal for them to cross the border, and it's illegal for them to stay here, and it's illegal for them to register to vote. The fact of the matter is what they're doing is, they can't get health care under Obamacare. So what we're doing is we're trying to automatically give them temporary protective status so that they're not illegal anymore. That's a bit of a shell game. Or they're saying, no, we're not giving them any money for health care. We're giving it to the states to reimburse them for providing them health care.
It's the same difference.
It is the same difference. Now, there was no vote yesterday because of the Yom Kippur observance. Senate will vote today, and we'll see if any Democrats have heard back from their constituents. Again, as far as Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is concerned, this is a socialist dream, put people under duress so that the small minority of communists can actually have their way. The difference, though, is that the Trump administration is looking at this as an opportunity. Who was it? Rahm Emanuel. Never let a good crisis go to waste. So here's Senator Mike Lee explaining to the Fox News audience last night how Russ Vought, the director of OMB, lays awake at night just looking at a ceiling, hoping for a moment like this.
But this is what they're doing. They're doing it deliberately. It's going to harm them. Because Russ Vought, the OMB director, has been dreaming about this moment, preparing this moment since puberty. Russ Vought has a plan, and that plan is going to succeed in further empowering Trump. This is going to be the Democrats' worst nightmare.
All right, Senator.
All right, so I don't know if he's really been dreaming about this since puberty, although that's quite an image if it is. But we shall see. What might the director of OMB do here with regard to actual permanent layoffs of federal employees? Because Democrats have created the environment for that to happen. We'll dive into that and a little bit more on where we stand on day 3 of the government shutdown in just a moment.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Your next $1,000 could be one text away. It's $5K a day on WMAL.
Senator Chris Murphy wrote on the X social media platform, "The government is shut down because Trump wants to act like a king and steal from you."
Oh, goodness.
They're
just bold-faced lying.
Democrats have no obligation to support a budget that funds the destruction of our democracy and doubles health premiums to fund a tax cut for billionaires. I think it's just important to know that this continuing resolution continues the Biden spending levels.
Thank you. And
it has been passed by Republicans and Democrats 13 times.
13 times, exactly.
So they're just... Democrats have no obligation to support a budget that funds the destruction of our democracy. Yeah, that Biden budget that we're continuing. It is literally a continuing resolution.
And Larry, by the way, the funding levels in this continuing resolution are like 50% higher than before the pandemic in 2019.
Yes.
Like, this would be the time for us to cut spending, and we're not even doing that. The Democrats are just lying through their teeth. It's ridiculous.
Here's Speaker Mike Johnson yesterday talking about it. Cut one, please.
Now, why are we saying that they want to restore taxpayer-funded benefits to illegal aliens? Because that's exactly what they did. When they rejected the clean CR that we sent over, the Senate Democrats, Chuck Schumer, filed a counter-proposal. Now, what was in that counter-proposal? You can see it for yourselves. In fact, if you're watching at home, go to my website right now, speaker.gov. Go to the press releases tab, and you'll see it. It's listed right there. Just click on it. I'd like you to turn in your hymnals to page 57, okay? Section 2141. It is there in black letter. They filed this. This is not a talking point. This is what they proposed.
That is exactly right. And as you mentioned, Maxine Waters, when asked about this, said the quiet part out loud. Cut to Maxine.
We want to keep the government open, and we want to work with the Republicans and have a bipartisan agreement to keep this government open. And health care is at the top of our agenda.
But aren't Democrats demanding health care for illegal aliens?
Democrats are demanding health care for everybody.
There you go.
We want to save lives.
It's the admission.
We want to make sure.
That's all. That's all. That's it. All right. Good. But at least she's honest about it, and she thinks it's a winning message. And in fact, every presidential candidate in 2020 thought it was a winning message because at a debate, when asked if their health care plan would fund health care for illegal immigrants, every single one of them raised their hands.
So exactly.
Why is this a surprise? Can we at least have a debate based on what they actually stand for and believe in?
Yeah, and here's the funny part. Like, why are you now trying to pretend like all these Democrats and these CNN talking heads are, oh, no, we don't show us where we're there. It's impossible for according to federal law for illegal immigrants to get health care. Like, they're pretending like they're hiding the ball that's been in plain sight. So, just embrace it. But they know it's a radical far left position, which is why they don't want to do that.
Yeah, they'd rather sneak it in the way they've been doing it. But I'd love one of these talking head interviewers at CNN, when they keep repeating that and saying, well, it's against the law in the Affordable Care Act to fund health care for illegal immigrants. I wish Jake Tapper would say, oh, okay, sure, it is against the law. But is that a good thing? If you could you change that?
Just ask them if they would.
Ask them what they believe.
They would.
What do you believe? What do you actually want? And we know what they want to do. And that's why many of us were against the Affordable Care Act, which, by the way, did not make care affordable in any way whatsoever.
That's right.
I love the fact that I'm forced to call it the Affordable Care Act, but they still refuse to call our bill the Big Beautiful Bill. Have you noticed that? They won't call it Big Beautiful Bill.
Yeah,
all right.
It's funny.
So those of us who were against the Unaffordable Care Act back in 2010 said for all of the principled reasons why it was going to be a problem and why it was going to make health insurance more expensive and why it was a disaster. But one fundamental thing that we kept saying at the time is if you let the government have this level of control and influence in providing health insurance to the American people, that means every single time we have a budget battle in Washington, D.C., it's going to be done with emotional blackmail over the American people, and one side is always going to say about the other that they're trying to keep you from going to the doctor, and if this budget isn't passed at the levels that we want, people are going to die. It is manipulative, it is destructive, it is despicable. Get the government out of the health insurance game altogether so that our politicians are not debating on these terms, that if they don't get their way, children will die. It's outrageous and disgusting, and it's exactly what they're doing right now, Patrice.
Well, not surprisingly. I mean, Obamacare was a Trojan horse in many ways. And I think it gave regular people, a sense that, the social safety net blanket is expanding a little bit more for more people. But now you realize, six-figure earners living across the United States are able to, on your taxpayer dollars, get cheaper health care. Well, how fair is that? But that is one of the unintended consequences of when the government keeps getting expanded time and time again. This program keeps getting expanded.
You are 1,000% right, except for one minor little thing. I don't think it was an unintended consequence. They knew full well.
True.
I think
True.
it was intended. Obviously, we'll have more on this all morning long. It's an important topic, and especially if there will, in fact, be layoffs and federal workers dismissed and given a pink slip. Is that a possibility, and will it happen? We'll talk about it all morning, including checking in with one of the players here, Congressman Haridopoulos, joining us at 8:35. Right now, it's 5:23.
All right, we know the New York City mayoral race is heating up, and we've got an interesting twist of events. We'll give you the update. Stay with us. It's O'Connor and Company at 5:30.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. WMAL. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:37. It's O'Connor and Company, where we just can't get enough of the Mexican hat dance sombrero memes. They're brilliant. They're funny. They're a way to take the edge off this current political showdown in the nation's capital. Coming up at 6:35, Gary Katz, who ran for Loudoun County Board of Supervisors, talk about the latest out of that body. Also at 7:05, J. Christian Adams talk about the voter rolls in Maryland and how illegal immigrants are still registered. 7:35, John Lott, Crime Prevention Research Center, talk about the FBI's really bad crime statistics right now that they still haven't cleaned up. 8:05 brings us Jim Hansen on that terror attack in England yesterday, and then at 8:35, Representative Haridopoulos. By the time he comes on the show, I'll be able to say that smoothly. If I got Hans von Spakovsky down, I can get Haridopoulos down. Talk about the government shutdown. It's Larry O'Connor with Patrice Onwuka. Good morning, Patrice.
Good morning. Happy Friday.
To you as well. I used to live in New York, love New York, great town. It's our neighbor to the north. Great to just hop on the train, bypass those horrible people in Philadelphia, go straight to New York, where you actually have a little bit more civilization. Like I said, I used to live there when I was young. I lived there right up until when Rudy Giuliani got elected, and then sadly I had to go. But I lived there during the bad days before my company transferred me to a different work location at the time. My daughter now is going to school up in New Haven, Connecticut, which is basically a suburb of New York. So I've been going up there a lot. I'm going to be up there twice this month. Going up to New York this weekend and then going up again a little later in October. So, I have been able to witness New York through its good days and through its bad days. And it's important that we watch this mayoral race, not only because it obviously portends for future Democrat versus Republican elections going forward for the midterms, as well as for the 2028 presidential election, but also how New York City is governed is important. We may, have a little bit of a rivalry with New York City, dating all the way back to the founding of Washington, D.C., and the circumstances under which it happened. But also, we can't deny the fact that New York is our country's largest city. It is very much in financial realm, cultural realm, fashion, entertainment, news and media, food. It is a very influential city because of its standing as our largest city. So this latest mayoral race is an important one to watch. And as we gave you an update yesterday, Eric Adams is out. It's now down between he calls himself a democratic socialist. And it's funny, he was challenged by The View. Are you a communist? He says, no, I'm a democratic socialist. The follow-up should be, what's the difference?
Exactly. They are synonymous.
They can't answer
Let's be
that
real
question,
here.
But that's fine. He's a Democrat, socialist, communist, Zoran Mamdani. And then, of course, Andrew Cuomo, the former governor of New York, who was a disaster during the pandemic, whose decisions led to the death of thousands, in my opinion, at nursing homes. And a guy who is rather unlikable, actually, Andrew Cuomo. And then you've got Curtis Sliwa, the Republican, who is, hanging on to about 20% of the vote because if I were in New York right now, I couldn't bring myself to vote for either Mamdani or Cuomo. So what do? Well, as you mentioned in your brilliant lead-up for this segment, Patrice, there has been a very interesting twist in this race. What's the latest out of New York?
Well, so here you go here. Joe Loda, former Mayor Giuliani's deputy mayor and a GOP 2013 mayoral candidate, has confirmed to the New York Post that he is throwing his support behind Andrew Cuomo. So you're talking about a Giuliani insider. He says, quote, "It's a choice between a proven manager, a socialist, and a Fruit Loop." He told the New York Times.
Curtis,
and of course,
Sliwa
I'm going with Andrew.
Sliwa would be the Fruit Loop in that equation, according to Mr. Loda. Yeah. So a lot of influential. Now, Giuliani himself has not said anything. But a lot of people who are Republicans and who were in the Giuliani administration are now openly saying, yeah, you got to go with Cuomo. Donald Trump, by the way, in characterizing this race, basically said it was between Cuomo and Mamdani, and when asked about Sliwa, he says, look, I'm a Republican, but Curtis is not exactly prime time. So,
ouch.
So there you have it. So the question for voters, Patrice, is what do you do? I mean, again, if I lived in New York, and when I lived in New York, I was a Republican, but I was faced with this. You know, I had to vote for either, at the time, David Dinkins or Rudy Giuliani. Obviously, I voted for Rudy Giuliani, and Giuliani lost in that first go-around. But before that, it's very rare that you have a good Republican candidate like Giuliani when you're living in New York City. So,
sure.
And in this case, if your vote is going to go to either a communist or it's going to go to Andrew Cuomo, who you loathe, what do you do? I don't know. There's a lot of pressure on Sliwa to drop out of the race, but I got to tell you, I don't think that means suddenly Cuomo's going to win. I don't see all those Sliwa voters going to Andrew Cuomo. People keep forgetting this one fundamental truth. People hate Andrew Cuomo.
Yes, I get that. And weeks ago I'd said you need both Sliwa and Adams to both drop out to be able to at least mount a defense against Mamdani. That said, what if Sliwa were to say, you know what, I'm going to bow out and give my support and ask Republicans to support Cuomo if he gives an apology to New Yorkers. If he says, you know what, I handled COVID badly. If he says, you know what, I am sorry for the people who died under my administration because I made bad choices. Now, whether that opens up a legal fight for him from a civil perspective, that's another story. But I wonder if that would go a long way with Republican supporters who are diehard Sliwa, but who also, I hope, see the bigger picture here, which is that Mamdani has to be sent a vociferous, a loud rebuke from New Yorkers who say, we don't want this. Because if you get it, I know some Republicans strategically are saying, oh, this is going to be great. It's another experiment, a 2025 or 2026 experiment in how socialism will fail. Well, what will fail in New York City if Mamdani gets his hands on a $116 billion city budget? The rippling impacts, it could backfire on Republicans in terms of what it would mean when you have a socialist trying his experiments, which will fail, but he still gets to explain in a way as though, this wasn't perfect. I got too much pushback from the city. I got too much pushback from Republicans. If I just had a perfect scenario, vote me in again, we will get it all done. And I think people have to have a bigger picture view of it to say, no, we cannot send the message that the most powerful city, or maybe second in the nation, is run by a socialist. No, we can't do that.
Well, listen, the people of New York are going to pick a socialist. It seems baked in the cake, and part of it is because when you give them a choice between two horrible options, you end up with a very horrible option. The question is, do you go with the horrible option who's a communist and who doesn't have the backing of the city council or any other? He keeps saying, I'm going to raise taxes. He can't raise taxes. He needs the city council to do that as well. Do you do that, or do you hire somebody who was a disaster and, by the way, breathe new life into his political life, Andrew Cuomo's, and let him run for larger office and larger office and larger office? I know if I were living in New York right now, if I had to vote, I'd vote to leave the city. It's 5:45.
Later this morning on the Chris Plant Show, will President Trump host a giant new citizen swearing-in ceremony on the South Lawn? 9 a.m. on WMAL.
Let's turn our sights to Loudoun County as the Chairwoman of the Loudoun County Board of Supervisors. You'll remember her. She's the one who took taxpayer dollars and spent them on junkets overseas at luxury five-star resorts and first-class
That's a lot
flights.
of these policymakers, though, at this local level. Have you noticed that, Larry?
No,
they
we have.
love
Democrats
living
mostly.
lavish overseas.
It's Phyllis Randall. She dodged that political bullet, and now she's decided to speak out about Charlie Kirk. Here's her idea of offering condolences to Charlie's widow. Listen, cut 5.
So my comments may sound a little bit different than my colleagues, and I hope that's okay, because we often believe that we can only hold one feeling at a time. That is not true. As a therapist, I know that the wonderful complexity of humanity is that we have the emotional capacity to hold more than one emotion at a time. I have found that right now that's true for me. Obviously, no person should be gunned down. No person should be murdered. Not kids in schools, not lawmakers in their homes, not political antagonists. No person should be murdered. And I absolutely hold empathy for Mr. Kirk's wife, for his children, and for the people he cared about.
Here comes a big butt coming.
And cared about him.
There it is.
At the same time, I don't feel the need to sugarcoat or ignore or gloss over some of the behavior that Mr. Kirk himself engaged in while he was living. A death, even a horrible death, does not automatically erase the harm a person did in his life. In my opinion, Charlie Kirk engaged in promoting political violence and division. It was couched in free speech, and indeed, it was free speech. But free speech can be damaging, free speech can be harmful, and free speech can even be dangerous. So while I hold empathy for Mr. Kirk...
Yeah, enough of that. I don't even want to hear the whole while I hold empathy crap. This is despicable, and the whole idea... First of all, you can't point... Notice how she didn't quote anything from Charlie Kirk as an example of how he promoted violence with his speech, and then said basically said that speech is violence in its own way. That's what they do. When they say that speech is violence, then it's okay to use violence to stop somebody from speaking. This is dangerous, despicable rhetoric. By the way, while Charlie Kirk is, basically still cold in the grave, what a horrible, horrible woman this is. And this is who's leading Democrats in Loudoun County right now.
Oh, it's not surprising. The sad part is that most of these people who have so much to say about what Charlie Kirk said never heard his name until he was assassinated. That's the irony here. If you would have asked this woman on September 8th who Charlie Kirk was, she'd have no clue. How did she find out? Well, she saw the graphic, horrendous video, and then she saw the clips from people on the left who are, taking, out of context clips of him saying things that they, will paint as whatever. But if she had actually taken the time to listen to all of the things that Charlie Kirk said and the totality of his message, I don't know how she would have come to that that opinion of him. And the irony is, people talk about, you can't gloss over what he did in his life. I find the hypocrisy so interesting when we're seeing declassified information about Dr. Martin Luther King, and people are starting to dig into a lot of his teachings and writings towards the end of his life, which, by the way, man, if you start to read and listen to his own videos and his words, you will say, wow, that's the Dr. King we have revered so much. But people will then say, but the left will then say, oh, you can't talk about the negatives. That doesn't cover up for it's just remarkable. In any case, it's not surprising.
It's not. But back here at home in Loudoun County, the fact that this woman decided that Phyllis Randall decided that she couldn't just sit by and let a resolution pass that mourned the loss of Charlie Kirk, as so many of the people in this country and in her county are grieving, that she had to say, oh, yeah, but let me just dump on him right now and basically say that he deserved to be murdered, while at the same time saying, oh, I disavow all violence. Of course, this guy, though, he was guilty of fomenting violence, and he can't defend himself because he's been assassinated. Phyllis Randall is an absolute disgrace. We're going to talk about this a little later in the program. Coming up at 6:35, Gary Katz, who ran for the Loudoun County Board of Supervisors, will be joining us. Right now it's 5:53.